the purpose of life is to be happy. The purpose of life is to be happy, because when we can find our own happiness and well-being, then we come alive and everybody gets the benefit of that.
Welcome to Zestful Aging, where I talk with fascinating, talented, and inspiring guests who reflect on the adventures and challenges of aging and who are living their lives with vibrance and purpose. I'm your host, Nicole Christina, psychotherapist, writer, and fellow Zestful Ager. I want to invite you to my free webinar, Zestful Aging. Here's how you do it. You can sign up at NicoleChristina.com. Last week, we spoke with Irene Frances Olson, who's the author of Requiem for the Status Quo, and she knows a lot about caregiving for a loved one with Alzheimer's. She's also a member of allsauthors.com, and I've had many guests who are a member of that wonderful consortium. And next week, we're going to be speaking with Colleen Wheatmartin, who was a professional publishing consultant, and she's going to talk to us about how to start your own writing project. Well, I have my Jack Russell Terrier Sparky right beside me and my coffee in my hand. So let's begin. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing James Baraz, who has been teaching mindfulness meditation for over 4 decades. He's the founding teacher of the renowned Spirit Rock Meditation Center in Northern California and is the co-author of 2 award-winning books, Awakening Joy and Awakening Joy for Kids. Since 2003, he's been leading the online course Awakening Joy, taken by more than 20,000 people, and he serves as an advisor to One Earth Sangha, which is a website devoted to Buddhist responses to climate change. Welcome to the show, James.
Nice to be here with you, Nicole.
Can we just start from the beginning and let me ask you, what led you to discovering mindful meditation?
Well, as many people are motivated, I was looking for some answers in my life and some ways to find peace and happiness inside. I had a lot of internal suffering, although my life seemed pretty good on the outside. People of my generation, many others like myself, were deeply impacted by a book called Be Here Now by a man named Ram Dass, and I wanted to go out and see him. He was in 1974 at a kind of spiritual summer camp called Naropa. And when I spoke with him, I said, "Hey, what about meditation?" I'd been doing transcendental meditation for a few years. That's what the Beatles were into, and if it was good enough for John Lennon, it was good enough for me. And but I was looking for something more, and he said, "Go check out this guy Joseph Goldstein, who teaches this mindfulness stuff." And I went to Joseph's class, and that was it. Joseph said, "It's possible to not be run by your neurotic thoughts." I'd never thought of that as a possibility before, and there was something about the way he said it that I believed him, and I said, "I'm going for it," and my life was never the same.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to describe the experience of meditation. It's a doing thing, right? Not just a describing thing.
Right. It's one thing to read it in a book, and it's another to have an embodied experience where you actually turn your awareness inside and connect with life in here instead of out there. But once you do, you see that you have everything you need to find not only inner peace, but connect with life around you too.
Could you talk a little bit about your book, Awakening Joy, particularly um, for people who are middle age, post middle age, actually, who are listening to us today, and I think suffering with some particular issues, maybe empty nest, maybe gray divorce, as it's called now, maybe the question of, facing our own mortality, maybe the question of what do I do now that I'm not needed as a full time parent or a full time uh, career person. There seems to be a real people describe sort of a what now emptiness. I've been defined by these roles, and now those roles are no longer here. I know I have some time left, but I also know time is limited. What do I do now?
Well, the book is based on the philosophy that has had such a deep impact on me, which is Buddhist philosophy. You don't have to be a Buddhist to benefit from it. The Buddha didn't teach Buddhism; he just taught ways to have a deep, fulfilling um, experience in life. And for me, I at some point after a long honeymoon period, I got very serious about my spiritual practice, dead serious, as I sometimes say. And I lost my joy. And then after some period of time, I wanted to look and see, well, what in these teachings are actually said about finding well-being and aliveness and happiness. The Buddha was called the happy one, or the Dalai Lama has a beautiful book, The Art of Happiness, and he starts
Mm-hmm.
out with the line, "The purpose of life is to be happy." The
Mm-hmm.
purpose of life is to be happy, because when we can find our own happiness and well-being, then we come alive and everybody gets the benefit of that. So I looked at these teachings and saw some principles about how to cultivate this, not just in meditation, but in one's life. And part of that, if you know anything about Buddhist philosophy, the Buddha starts out with the fact that there is suffering in life. And
Mm-hmm.
he says the more we can come to terms with that and not run away from it, the greater the possibility of coming to the end of suffering, as he called it, which is the highest happiness. So in writing about awakening joy, sometimes people think, oh, what is that, just skipping through a field of daisies and saying everything is just wonderful and fine?
Pollyannish, yeah.
Yeah, and quite the contrary. It's being willing to open up to everything in life, the the hard stuff, as well as not miss all the beauty around us and all the goodness around us. So,
Mm-hmm.
although it's called Awakening Joy, it's not just a feel good program; it's a feel everything program.
Oh,
But you
wow.
need to learn how to feel everything and not be overwhelmed by the hard stuff, and to let yourself be touched by all the goodness inside and around you. And when you're authentically connected to right where you are, there's an aliveness that comes. And especially as you get more and more adept and familiar with looking for what's good instead of inclining towards what's wrong, then you come alive. As one neuroscience friend says, the brain is like Teflon for positive
Mm-hmm.
experiences and Velcro for negative experience.
And I think you're quoting Rick Hansen.
Yeah, I am. Rick Hansen. Yeah,
It's so interesting because I think what you're saying is this is a skill that one can develop.
exactly.
It's not something we're necessarily born with. In fact, our brains really are sort of focused, as you said, the Velcro. We're wired to be vigilant and look for danger. And so we really have to be very aware of that.
Mhm. Well,
And it's a
I'm sorry.
practice.
Yeah, it is a practice. And just to backtrack, when you said we're not born with it, actually, we are born with a natural aliveness and joy.
Mm.
When you come into this world, if as a baby, if you're fed and diapered and get a little bit of love, you squeal with delight. Wow! So
Life is grand.
this is inherent. This is intrinsic to who we are,
Mm.
but we also have this other self-preservation mechanism that looks out for danger, and particularly we are taught from a very early age, watch out, be careful, which is a good thing, but our overactive amygdalas scan the horizon for what can go wrong, and that becomes a natural habit for many of us. So it takes practice to remember to look for and let yourself be touched by all the good inside and around you. That takes practice.
Mm-hmm. And, my experience too is with my clients. They're dealing with their personal, issues or stress or distress, but now they're also dealing with what feels like the world is just crumbling before our eyes. Those two things are like this sort of the macro and the micro, where people seem to be feeling so overwhelmed, even more so than ever.
Absolutely. And there's good reason for that, because it is a scary world, and in some ways we've never been so close to self-destruction. And if you are aware of anything that's happening in our on our planet, you know that, as one friend says, we're in a race between fear and consciousness, and we're if we don't wake up, we're heading for very scary times. We are in the middle of scary times, but our planet is needing our care. And at the same time, there's never been as much consciousness. There's never been as much inspiration and caring and awareness that we have in our power to change things. So it's a very fascinating time, and the more that people wake up to all the good rather than feeling despair, the more they
Mm-hmm.
have energy to actually do something and contribute with their caring and their love, and that becomes contagious in itself. And so we're in this race, and the way I see it, we want to create or help create as many agents of consciousness as we can, because it's much better to come from love and aliveness than fear and despair.
Mm-hmm. So much to think about, so much to understand. Would you just talk a little bit about the Earth Sangha and what the
Mm.
work is about there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I'm as you said in the introduction, I'm an advisor to a very wonderful platform called One Earth Sangha, Sangha, which was put together by two people, one of whom is the World Wildlife Fund, now vice president. He has been the director of the climate program for World Wildlife Fund, one of the best organizations, environmental organizations. And it's a platform that gives teachings and gives inspiration and actions and trainings for people who want to contribute in meaningful ways, or use perspectives that help address this both personally and societally. And there are a number of different teachings in Buddhist philosophy that are whether or not you call them Buddhist, are going to be essential for uh, changing our perspective on things and for helping save the planet, I believe. Just a few concepts, for instance, that you can go more deeply if you visit the One Earth Sangha website, is understanding our interconnectedness, understanding that this Earth isn't just for humans uh, to to enjoy and take resources at the
Mm-hmm.
expense of everything else, because we're all interconnected. And
Mm-hmm.
as the biosphere goes down, we're the ones that are going to be losing. So there's a radical shift of perspective that's needed to see we're part of a much greater whole. This earth isn't just for humans.
Do you think most people are, that's a concept that's, we've been hearing that, we've been seeing it, we know about, one species dies out, the other, like in my neighborhood in upstate New York, it's a suburb of the university, there's just deer wandering everywhere. And it I mean, they're cute, but it also feels very wrong. And, because there's no predators at all. So it's become a really big issue. Do you think people are starting to get that, we can't just sort of mess around? It's not like a closet where we just take what we want and then, we just throw away the rest. Or do you have a sense that people are starting to appreciate that concept of what we do matters across the world?
I definitely do. More and more by the day, even in the last few weeks. We're talking now in June, but in the last few weeks there were. It doesn't get so much airplay in the States, but just a few weeks ago, 1,600 cities had students that were protesting around the world. Over 1 million students that were protesting to wake up and
Mm.
see this planet is on fire. And just in a recent CNN poll, that voters in one party, the number one issue in that CNN poll was climate. That
Mm-hmm.
is unheard of. Or a few weeks ago, the UK, their parliament declared, and this is the government of the UK, declaring that the planet is now in an emergency crisis and we've got to wake up. So
Mm-hmm.
even from
Right.
6 months ago, let alone a year or a number of years ago, it's happening all over. So that's where I say, as well as the dire situation we're in, we are waking up daily, and you can't hide it.
Mm-hmm.
So we're all gonna.
You can't ignore the weather.
You can't ignore it. So sooner or later, everyone is going to wake up. And the way I see it is this: the sooner we can help that awakening happen, the less suffering there will be on not only a human scale but a planetary scale. But it's definitely happening, and time is running out. So we're in this race, as I said before. It's a very exciting and uh, enlivening time to be part of the consciousness movement.
Hey, Zestful Agers. Last year, I attended the International Federation on Aging's global conference in Toronto, and they've announced the 15th Global Conference on Aging for Niagara Falls, Ontario, from November 1st through 3rd, 2020. Zestful Aging Podcast is a proud partner for this conference, and I encourage you to all consider attending. The conference features prominent experts presenting and discussing critical issues within the field of aging. So head on over to ifa2020.org to learn more, and I hope to see you in Niagara Falls in November. And I'm wondering how it is that you keep your optimism and your hope, even with all of these tools that you have and have developed and learned, understand, and all that. I imagine there are times when you hear the news, you hear what our administration says or does, and are there times when you have to work pretty hard to keep your own head above water?
Definitely. That's part of the process. You have to first come from gratitude. This is Joanna Macy, who's one of the leading thinkers and environmental consciousness teachers. She has a beautiful book called Active Hope. And as she says it, and I agree with this paradigm, first come from gratitude and see how amazingly blessed and generous this earth is for us. And then you have to take a look at the truth and feel all the pain inside and go through a grieving process where you're coming to terms with reality and not thinking like, oh yes, in a number of generations there may be some hard times. This is happening right now, right now. And I go through my own grieving process. I read something by this fellow who's written a bestseller, David Wallace Wells. He wrote a book called The Uninhabitable Earth. And when I read that, it was a second kind of grieving, the same that I had when I read Bill McKibben's book, Earth, with two A's, Eaarth. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, I have to take in the reality of what's here and feel that pain. But then, as you come to terms with reality, then you see, okay, what can I do to make a difference, not from fear, not from despair, but from love and joy, and do something. And whatever I do, even when you're just turning off the lights, you do it as an act of love for the planet. So you are continually connecting with the planet, and whatever you do, as a wonderful teacher, Angeles Arian, who passed away a few years ago, she says, action absorbs anxiety. So doing something
Yes.
from joy and from love, as another teacher of mine says, a joyful responsibility, then you kind of put your anxiety, you channel it, and you do your part, and you do it with others, and then you don't feel so alone, and it becomes an uplifting contribution rather than imploding and feeling like, oh, what can I do? If we all do our parts and we all help each other wake up, there's enough information to know what needs to happen. And then as the conventional wisdom starts tipping to the point that it reaches the places of power, and we take control over this unsustainable situation, that's how things change. That's how they've always changed, as Margaret Mead says. It's always been a few people that have made a difference and wake everybody else up. So,
And maybe there's a way in which we had to get to this point to get everyone on board.
absolutely, this is as one way. Andrew Harvey is another brilliant, inspiring thinker. He wrote a book called The Hope, A Guide for Sacred Activism. He says we're in what he calls the dark night of the species, and in the in spiritual awakening, there's a famous treatise by Saint John of the Cross, The Dark Night of the Soul, where you
Mm-hmm.
have to go through the darkest places, the scariest places, and like Joseph Campbell talks about the hero's journey, all the heroes and heroines, they go through this darkest place of fear and and loss and confusion and meeting your demons before you wake up and become a Jedi Master or Katniss Everdeen with the Hunger Games. That's the hero's journey, and it's the dark night of the soul, and we're in the dark night of the species, where we have an opportunity here to wake up like we never would have otherwise, and we just would have been falling asleep at the wheel. But now
Mm-hmm.
we see, whoa, if we don't do something different, we're all doomed. So I see us as that, in that kind of potential deep awakening greater than we've ever had before.
Mm. It's this fine line. I mean, to and I'm sure it sounds like you're a very voracious reader, but this idea of how do I stay awake, allow, not argue with reality, which I know is one of the expressions, and but also be able to be hopeful and take action and keep moving forward. It seems like such a balancing act.
It is, yes, and in fact, so in Buddhist philosophy, there are two qualities of mind and heart that help hold us all. One is compassion, which is just a simple, we're wired up to care. We're wired up to respond to suffering around us, or we read uh, um, about some disaster and our heart breaks, or we
Mm-hmm.
read about climate change and we say, oh my goodness, I care so much, I might be, we feel overwhelmed. But compassion needs to be balanced with another quality called equanimity,
Mm-hmm.
which is finding a balance in the middle of it all, so you're not overwhelmed and you have enough spaciousness to say, okay, this is the way things are. What is my wisest response? And I do whatever I can do, but it's not up to me to save the world. What I can only do my part, and and it's holding both of those together, where
Mm-hmm.
there's a spaciousness that says, okay, this is the way it is, but there's a caring that says, what can I do? And if there's too much caring and not enough balance and centeredness, then we tip over into fear, despair, hopelessness, and or denial, and we just go numb. But if there's too much spaciousness and not enough caring, we're falling asleep. So it's finding a balance
Mm-hmm.
between the two, between compassion and equanimity.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes if we're so overwhelmed by all the news, we need to take a break and get some
Yes.
space and rejuvenate and nourish ourselves. But if we're just taking a break and saying, okay, well, whatever happens, happens, I don't want to be involved, then we're missing out on our possibility of joyful responsibility of making a difference. So it's balancing both of those.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. I noticed you use the term climate change. Tell me about that choice rather than global warming.
Oh well, because global warming uh, doesn't actually. I these days I often use climate crisis or
Mm-hmm.
climate disruption, um, because global warming is such a vague idea. Oh yes, we're heating up. How gee, that's going to be too bad. But our Earth is changing like it never has, and climate is something. that we can, for me, it gives a sense of this is not just about uh, what humans can do. This is something much bigger than us. We are not in charge here. And when we see the bigger picture and see the planet, the climate is way bigger than what we have control over, and that it's changing, and that there's a crisis. And according to the last report of the IPCC, this international report that the UN commissioned, we have 12 years to turn this around. We have this window of time, at least um, to to head off catastrophes that we can only dream of now. Now we're talking about borders and refugees and some people from either Syria or Mexico or Central America wanting to get in. We're looking at, as it's said, 200 million people will be living in uninhabitable lands. So this is kind of like kindergarten when we're talking about mass change.
Distraction, such a
Yeah.
distraction.
So this is big stuff, and it's scary as hell, and yet we have this opportunity to wake up. So it's to just say global warming. It's such a vague thing, and to see our planet needs our caring more than ever. Yeah. And to come from joy, to come from love, to come from inspiration. What can I do that can make a difference? And as you do that more, then everybody around you starts to think in the same way.
There's so many good things to talk about here, but what I think about our listeners saying that sounds fascinating. It sounds so important, and I don't know where to start. These are such big concepts and very different. I think you'd agree with me than the typical kind of Western thought pattern, the consumerism, give me
It,
more, give me a bigger house, give
it's
me.
all about changing that paradigm from more to uh, to seeing what you really need as opposed to what you want.
And right. And so for the person who has not been studying this and not really had this epiphany that you had, I think, many, many years ago, where can one start? What are the first small steps for someone who's been, for example, in a career, a teacher, whatever, and now they're saying there must be more for me here. What are the first steps in challenging, the very typical paradigm of buying things, chasing things, all of that? How do they begin?
It's a big question, and I don't know if I have one size fits all. But I would say start, especially since I know that this is zestful aging, so that people who have been around for a while. And you mentioned before about, oh well, now I'm in the latter parts of my life, the latter half or whatever. Um, it starts with seeing every moment counts and appreciating every moment. Even before you figure out what you can do, don't miss the fact that there are a finite number of moments in your life, and the more you can be present for them, the more you come alive. So in Buddhist philosophy, for instance, it's recommended, one practice, is remembering that um, death is right here. The Buddha says, no matter how old you are, realize every day can be your last day. Not to bum you out, not to depress you, but to
Mm,
not take for granted this precious life that you have, and to let yourself come alive by falling in love with life, and particularly falling in love with the things that truly bring us joy, which are not about acquiring. We're told if you get this, then you'll be happy. That's what all of our consumer society is about. But falling in love with the miracle of life all around you. Einstein has this line. He says there's two ways to go through this life. One is seeing nothing as a miracle, and the other is seeing everything as a miracle.
mm-hmm.
So for those listening, if you just say, oh, well, another day, oh, what, if you see, oh, this could be my last day,
Mm-hmm.
everything becomes so much richer and alive.
Mm-hmm.
And to connect with the life around you, particularly, where so many of us live in urban areas where we are disconnected from the natural order of things and the nature around us, life is a miracle. And the more we can see ourselves as part of a greater whole, the more we don't take it for granted and love being alive. And that, I think, is one of the most important starts, to feel truly grateful for this life that you've been given, and not take it for granted.
Mm-hmm. I've been doing mindful meditation for a long time and I've even taught it, but just to hear the way you describe it, it's like even sort of this deepening appreciation. And I'm thinking about my garden
Mm.
in upstate New York. We're a little bit behind on the weather. It's quite chilly, but every day I go out and things have bloomed. They are bigger and they're growing. And yesterday the irises weren't out, and then I go out. We had a rain. The irises are out. I mean, it truly is just mind-blowingly beautiful
Mm.
if you can take enough time to see it.
Exactly. You can fall in love with your irises, and they can awaken joy right there. I'm just remembering a line I love from the wonderful book The Little Prince by Saint-Exupéry, and the fox says to the little prince, "It's the time that you spend with your rose that makes your rose so special. But it
Mm,
takes some slowing down enough to realize, oh wow, I'm alive. Oh, life is happening all around me. If this is your last days and weeks, all of a sudden everything would come alive so much more. And that's part of the practice, to train ourselves to not wait until it's the end of our life, but to appreciate, wow, I'm alive right now. Let's not miss this. And
mm.
that's what motivates us to um, want to do what we can out of love and appreciation. That's where gratitude is the first step.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, it's so powerful. And, we've been hearing about it. I mean, Oprah started with the gratitude journal and all that. And I think, people get it and it makes sense. But it's not really just saying, I'm grateful for the roof over my head or I'm grateful for this meal. It's a whole lens, right? It's a whole way of being.
Once you start looking through the lens of gratitude and wonder and awe,
Mm, mm-hmm.
then you really come alive. It's like that line Jesus says, unless you become converted like children, you will not know the kingdom of heaven. and it's letting our that natural wonder that's in us, that we were born with, that makes us want to love to learn, that makes us want to stare at a sunset and be touched by the beauty all around us. Just taking the time to be present for it is a very important start, which is why mindfulness is such a powerful gift at this time in our culture.
Mm-hmm. So interesting, so important. And I'm wondering, James, where people can find out more about your work and your course. Where would you lead them?
Oh, sure. Well, I have a website, Awakening Joy. Just Google it. AwakeningJoy.info is the website, but if you just put in Awakening Joy. And I wrote a book called Awakening Joy, 10 Steps on the Road to Happiness. Um, and my work, my whole schedule is there. But you can go to One Earth Sangha if climate change is something that's interesting for you. One Earth Sangha, SANGHA.org.
And remind me what Sangha means.
Sangha is a word that means community or like-minded friendship. It's a word in Asia, satsang, in company of the truth, or refuge in the Sangha. Like-minded friends, when we're with people who inspire us or who share our values, high noble values, we remind each other, because it's so easy to forget when we're going through this alone, and you can't do it alone. So One Earth Sangha is really being part of the community of people that love this planet and want to make a difference. And you'll see there on that website also many different actions and activities, and joining, being informed. Joining 350.org is a very inspiring website for environment. Greta Thunberg, Thunberg, is a 16-year-old Swedish girl who is mobilizing youth around the country, around the world, I should say. There were 1,600 cities that went on a children's strike a couple of weeks ago. And there's another one happening September 20th, a global one that's going to have adults as well as children. There's so much, but you can go to One Earth Sangha, or go to my website, or go to Spirit Rock website. I have many talks on that I give each week on a website called dharmaseed.org. DHARMA seed, SEED.org, and I've got many talks on there too.
Great. It has been such a pleasure to speak with you today, James. Thank you so much for taking the time, and thank you for all of your work.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Nicole, and thanks for helping me spread more consciousness and caring in this world.
Thank you so much for joining us on Zestful Aging. If you like the podcast, please share with some of your friends. I love to hear from my listeners. Send me an email at NicoleChristina.com. Next week, we're going to be speaking with Colleen Wheat-Martin, who was a professional publishing consultant, and she's going to talk to us about how to start your own writing project, whether it's a blog, a memoir, or an article you'd like to submit to your favorite magazine. Hello, podcast listeners. In this phase of our lives, we're more aware than ever that our time is precious, and we certainly don't want to waste it taking care of stuff that we no longer need left over from a life that we're no longer living. We know we'd feel better with less clutter and more open space, but we don't know how to get there. And it turns out it's not as easy as putting things in 3 piles or using the decluttering tricks that we hear about on TV. Because if it was that easy, everyone would have an organized home with lots of space and everything neatly stacked in see-through bins. But most of us don't know where to start, how to deal with the overwhelm and the emotions that come with our clutter. If this sounds familiar, I'd love you to check out the online course I've developed with professional organizer and designer Carrie Luderin. This course is different than others you may have tried because we give you clear steps to deal with clutter and tools to help you face the overwhelm and feelings that come up when we're going through our stuff. It's practical and realistic, and the lessons are short and punchy. It's very manageable, but it has the power to change your life. We all deserve to live in a peaceful home without the chaos of too much stuff. Find out more at NicoleChristina.com. See you next time for another episode of Zestful Aging.